Leland Baker jumped with the 502nd Regiment of the 101st Division.
I got out of my chute, I assembled my rifle, and about the time I got it assembled, I saw somebody coming up the hedgerow. Looked like 3 or 4 people. I crouched down in the weeds. These people got almost to me. They looked like Americans. The silhouette of the helmet looked like they were Yanks. They got almost to me, and I yelled out flash, which was taking the place of the word halt. The reason being that halt is spelled the same, it means the same, and it sounds the same in about 4 different languages, including German and English. When this took place, one of the men in the group stopped and said, "Thunder," which was a password, to which I replied, "Welcome," which was a countersign.
Meanwhile, for the Rangers attacking Point de la Percée, the experience was similarly stunning. Ralph Goranson.
Going across the beach was like a dream. I can only speak for myself. As I went across, I saw men down. However, we had trained that if a man went down, leave him alone. He stayed down. Your job was to get across the beach intact with your weapons, with your knowledge of the job to be accomplished, and then set out to do the job. Every man in the company was trained to do the company job, so no matter who fell, the job would get done.
James Eads with the 82nd describes the fight within Saint-Mère-Église.
We entered the edge of a large square with a church at our left side. There were troopers lying everywhere, almost all of them still in their chutes. One was hanging from the spire on the church. There was a low street with a stone wall on the church about 4 or 5 feet below the level of the courtyard. We dropped behind this, just as a troop-carrying vehicle came down the street toward us. We were sitting ducks, so we both started firing, hoping to take as many of them with us as we could. I also noticed out of the corner of my eye firing coming from a building across the street at point-blank range. One of us got the driver of the truck, and it stopped, and out of it the Krauts came. I had to put in another clip. I had just accomplished this and began to fire again when I heard my buddy grunt and saw him fall. Suddenly, the firing from the vehicle stopped. I sprayed the building window area and raced back behind the church, circling around it to a spot where the museum now stands. I reloaded with just 1 clip, and as I had no more taped together. I had started out with 20 clips, 10 on my belt, 7 in my knapsack, and 3 taped together, staggered and reversed. At 30 rounds to a clip, I had 600 rounds, the 3 taped together giving me 90 rounds for speedy reloading. I had already emptied 6 clips.
Howard Vanderbeek remembers being impressed with the actions of the first men ashore.
Brave men all, Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt among them. They would in moments help ink a page in history, splashing through the surf and running across the gray sands of Utah Beach. They would be among the first Americans who, through personal combat, would begin the destruction of Hitler's formidable Atlantic Wall.
Robert Walker.
In the water, I quickly discovered that my head was not staying above water. Despite the 2 life preservers, the choppy waves were going over the top of my head. Although I swallowed some seawater, I knew I could swim well enough to keep afloat, so I headed for shore. It was not easy to swim fully clothed and loaded with rifle and equipment, but I managed to do it and also look around a bit. There were others around me, swimming, dying, and dead. I wasn't thinking of anything except to get on shore and join my unit. Even though it looked like chaos on the beach, I didn't want to be in the water any longer than necessary. I felt I was too exhausted to swim the rest of the distance, so I decided I'd have to give up some of my load. First, I dropped my rifle. Next came my helmet, and then the harness with the musette bag. With that much gone, I was able to swim the next 100 yards or so and touch bottom. Here I was on Omaha Beach. Instead of being a fierce, well-trained fighting infantryman, I was an exhausted, almost helpless, unarmed survivor of a shipwreck. Things were not going well on the beach, but I knew that was where I wanted to be. There was no place to hide in the water. The water was littered with bodies and all kinds of damaged equipment such as boats, vehicles, tanks, trailers, and lots of junk.
The scene was so confusing that soldiers often didn't even know where to aim their guns. George Roach.
And all we could see were some of the villages along the shoreline. A few homes looked like summer beach type homes. We didn't know whether the firing was coming from there, or whether it was coming from the top of the hill, or where it was coming from. And I can remember just dropping myself on the sand and taking my rifle and firing it at this house up there, and Sergeant Wilkes said to me, "What are you firing at?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know what I'm firing at."
Despite their extensive training, nothing could prepare them for the actual events of June 6th. Donald Scribner.
We were hit by artillery fire, mortars, machine guns, you name it. The LCA I was on was hit 3 times. The first shell hit the very front, tore the ramp completely off. The young man that was sitting in the front never knew I'd hit him. I know the LCA started filling up with lots of blood. It was just as red as anything. Then it was hit again on the port side. I started to go over the rear starboard side. When I looked back, I noticed our 60mm mortar was lying on the bottom. The young man that was to carry that to shore, he was dead.